Welcome to the Building Code. I'm Zach Witovich.
And I'm Charley Burtwhistle. And we are back in the studio with a very exciting guest, Pete Newstrom from Aerolift. You want to tell us a little bit about what Aerolift does, Zach?
Yeah, so we wanted to kind of take a look from the subcontractor perspective, Buildertrend, but also kind of an area of construction that we don't hear a lot about, which is elevators. Growing thing for a lot of custom home builders to obviously have elevators in their home. Sounds like, you know, you might be interested when we're looking at the website.
I am very interested. We'll definitely have a link to aerolift.com in the show notes, but really cool designs out there. And, it sounds like, and obviously we'll ask Pete about this, but it's transitioning a little bit more away from, this is just something that people are putting in their homes for accessibility, people with wheelchairs, things like that, to no, this can be a feature in your house. They're cheaper, they're better technology. It's not just for giant LA mansions anymore, but little Omaha, family home that I just bought can now have a elevator in it.
You really want to make this happen. I can see it on your face.
Yeah, I don't know how I'm going to make it happen. I'll just keep talking about it, and then maybe somehow
going to manifest it, huh?
Yeah, that's what we're going to go for.
Well, the interesting about this company is small company, but they have 13 locations. Started as a family business,
right,
now across many markets in the United States. Let's get Pete in here. Let's start talking to him about Aerolift and see what we can learn.
Let's do it.
Pete, thanks for joining us today on the Building Code. It's great to have you here. Let's kind of start with the basics. We always like to ask our customers, tell us about Aerolift.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here. Nice to meet you all. So Aerolift is our family business. I work in business with my father, who started the business in the 1980s, and my two brothers. And of course, we have a great team that works with us every day. And we're a specialty subcontractor. We sell, install, and do service work on accessibility lifts and specialty elevators, including home elevators. And we've been doing that for just over 35 years.
Where are you guys located? I kind of was poking around, just doing a little research like Charlie and I like to do, get to know you a little bit before we actually get to meet you. And I noticed you have quite a few locations. It's really interesting to see kind of all the markets you're in, and you're a family business, but you have quite a presence across the U.S., huh?
Yeah. We've been fortunate to be able to grow our business as time goes along. We started in northern Minnesota in a town called Duluth, which you may have heard of because now they have funny commercials on TV.
The Duluth Trading Company, right?
Yes, exactly. And but back in the day, it was just kind of a small town on Lake Superior in northern Minnesota in the North Woods. And anyway, it's a great place to grow up, and that's where our company started as well. And then over time, we added offices in the Twin Cities and Wisconsin right next door, and then some other states, including Ohio, where I live, as well as California, where one of my brothers lives as well.
That's awesome. Yeah, like Zach said, I was definitely surprised when I was visiting your website, all the different locations you guys have. So I guess to zoom back in time a little bit, how did you kind of get started with Aerolift, and kind of what's your current role there now?
Yeah, so growing up in a family business, you're kind of always involved to
right,
some extent, at least in my experience. I'd say whether you like it or not, but it's always been pretty enjoyable,
yeah,
in one way or another. And so I remember, just doing things like staffing the state fair booth, handing out brochures about Aerolift in high school and stuff like that, and then helping out on construction sites during college and that. And then I actually, after college, went to join the Air Force for a few years, and I did that. And then afterwards, didn't really have my heart set on joining the family business quite yet. Went to business school and worked for a large company. And at one point during business school, started working for the family business Aerolift part-time. And it just kind of had the hook was set, and the involvement grew and made it a full-time job about 8 years ago, and have just really enjoyed doing a little bit of everything from sales to installation, and now I help with a lot of the back office functions like accounting and marketing and that kind of thing.
Wear a lot of hats in those family businesses, don't you?
Yeah, which is it's one of the challenges, and it's also something that keeps it interesting day in and day out.
The kind of various products that you guys offer, I know you had some listed on there. I mean, look awesome.
Charley's interested. You're going to bring elevator service to Omaha, Nebraska to hook up.
Yeah,
Charley's
100%. I would say you have a very hot lead in Charley Burtwhistle right now, Pete, for installing one of these. What would you say, kind of like, who are your kind of typical clients outside of, podcast hosts? Who do you typically serve? What are kind of like their range of needs, and how does that, kind of build process generally look like?
Yeah, so our clients are both. To take a step back, we do both residential and non-residential work, and in both cases, our clients can either be the building owner. So obviously, in a residential sense, it's the homeowner, but also construction professionals and design. That includes design professionals, so home builders, architects as well. And so those are folks, obviously, where we're located in the Midwest and out on the West Coast as well.
When you are, talking to customers from a residential standpoint or from a commercial standpoint, what are the kind of the differences between working with those builder populations? I mean, I'm just curious of kind of your relationship with, do you have builders that you're kind of always working with, or do you have kind of an outbound approach, or, from a homeowner standpoint, does it change the way that you provide services? I'm just kind of curious about that aspect.
So we really try and be relationship focused either way, right? Whether we're dealing with a private homeowner or whether we're dealing with a home builder that we've done a number of jobs for, we just, we try and put that relationship first and turn it into a long-lasting relationship. You asked about some of the different products we work with, and so that could be something as simple as a chair that goes up and down the stairs, a stair lift, or it could be something as complex as a luxury glass home elevator, which might have been what Charley was, looking at earlier.
Yeah, definitely within budget.
So we do some. What's that?
Definitely within his budget. The glass elevator. He wants the most, grandiose,
top of the line
elevator that he can get.
I hope so. We'll talk about that offline, Charlie.
Perfect.
But I look forward to it. But yeah, so whether it's something relatively simple or fairly complex, we're really just looking to meet or hopefully exceed the aims of the client. And again, that could be a home builder where each job is different, obviously, and so we try and have a broad array of lifts and elevators to satisfy something that for home elevators, for example, a lot of times the designer or the homeowner is looking to blend in, have the elevator blend into the home design. You match the fixtures and, maybe you match the flooring and stuff like that. But a lot of times it's also to stand out, and be a design statement, like one of those, like a high-end glass elevator. And so really we just try and, prepare ourselves to be able to meet the need, whatever it is, and maintain that long-lasting relationship.
So I think when you talk about meeting the need and, maintaining relationships, you're in a really unique position, a really interesting position for Zach and I, where you've been with, this is a family business. So you've been able to see Aerolift, over the past, couple decades. How have those needs of your clients kind of shifted as, technology advances, different codes, change in the building and, site, and then just general trends of, having, home elevators and things like that to make, increase accessibility, but also, as you mentioned, just have it more of a feature and a design thing. What kind of shifts in the industry have you had the, ability to view over the past few years?
Yeah, there's definitely been a shift, as you say. Obviously, the average age of the American population is getting older. There's more baby boomers who are, either building or planning or already moved into their quote unquote forever homes.
Right.
And so the type of thing that we do is much more common than, say, 20, 30 years ago, where accessibility was maybe more of about the utility, the being able to physically access things, which is obviously still part of the equation. But at the same time, I think there's a couple things that have changed. Number one, there are more options for folks. So whether it's aesthetic options or, being able to match the decor of the homes more fully, or whether it's, more practical type of options like the drive system. I mean, we install a type of elevator that's actually powered by air, which is really cool.
Wow.
And then they have, just as another example, something these days called a shaftless elevator, where it almost looks like a large, nice looking phone booth that doesn't have a shaft, and it just moves in between two floors. And there's kind of a false floor when it's on the lower floor, and then when it goes up, it just kind of disappears and the space is open. It's really cool. So there are more options in that regard too. And then the other thing that I think has changed over the last few decades is more people are planning ahead as opposed to being reactive and adapting to a sudden or unexpected set of circumstances, and making a home that was built like all the other ones around it wheelchair accessible. Now it's much more common for folks to plan ahead, and a lot of times they're putting the elevator in before it's physically looked at as a need, or if that's not in the budget, they might just stack closets in advance so that however many years in the future, when an elevator is in the budget or is needed, it's that much easier to add to the home. So those are a couple of the main changes that I've seen.
So do you think it's fair to say that compared to when you were getting started and coming back to work at your family business, that accessibility in general has improved kind of industry wide compared to where it was 20, 30 years ago?
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. And there's also on the builder side and the remodeling side, there's certifications and programs that help with that, like the CAP certification, and NAHB has similar programs. And so, but I do think that the focus on accessibility has grown, as it should. Obviously to serve, more and more people throughout the country.
So shifting from the, trends in the past that you've seen to the future, what kind of, what excites you about the future of, elevators and, improved accessibilities in the home space, and where do you kind of see this industry trending over, the next couple decades? Yeah,
well, I think we're entering a point in time where, back in the day, I think that there were primarily, two types of situations where you'd find a home elevator. One is if it was needed for wheelchair accessibility, and the other is, if it was in kind of a, large mansion type of state, where money wasn't an issue. And I think we're entering into an exciting time when you don't have to be in one of those two situations to add a home elevator to your home. It's very common, for folks, again, to be planning their forever home, whether that's a remodeling job or whether it's a new, custom home, and to just, go ahead and do that advanced planning and add the feature. And so I think that's really exciting when you think about it, because it has broader ramifications too. There's nothing wrong with senior care facilities or anything like that. They have their place, and a lot of times that's really the best option that needs to happen for a specific individual. But at the same time, if you can plan ahead and you can extend the amount of time that you or your family member is able to live in your home, obviously that's a positive thing. And so I think that's really exciting to take that from a relatively small percentage of the population that's able to do that, or doing it, based on a specific need, to taking that to where it's, much more common occurrence, and almost, at some point, hopefully in the future, it becomes, the norm. So that's a really exciting possibility that I see.
A thing I want to touch on too that's kind of interesting, that piqued my interest, is you brought up the innovation in home accessibility. Is there anything else kind of on the cutting edge or bleeding edge that maybe Charley and I aren't aware of, that I didn't even think about the technology advancement in the actual lift and elevator market and industry? So, I mean, I'm just genuinely curious, is there other things that are out there that maybe people wouldn't be aware of that you guys also provide?
So I mentioned a couple of the more interesting ones earlier, such as that air-powered elevator, and the what they call a shaftless or through the floor elevator, and those are very eye-catching. But there's also simpler, maybe beneath the surface or behind the scenes improvements that are being made. For example, pertaining to safety. Always have an eye on safety, and then also quality. Those are two of the things that are always foremost in our minds. And so things that are coming would be things like integrating into the Internet of Things, and having remote visibility of the lifts and elevators. And so that we're seeing more and more of that as time goes along, and those are pretty exciting. In terms of the visual appeal, I would say definitely either the glass elevators or the through the floor elevators. They kind of remind a lot of folks of either George Jetson or the Star Trek beam me up type situation. So we get some good customer feedback from those types of lifts and elevators. So those are probably the fan favorites.
The article that you had sent over before this, of the kind of the 9 different examples that you had, the glass one is what caught my eye. Yeah. The other really cool thing that you said there was the Internet of Things, which I hadn't even thought about before, but man, that starts getting really, really cool because obviously, I have a Ring security system and a Nest thermostat and stuff like that. Being able to call my elevator from my phone before I don't even have to worry about pressing the button and waiting. It's just there for me on a schedule. You start being able to do some pretty cool things once you get that integrated in your tech.
One of the things
Absolutely.
that I was also curious about, and I see that you guys also provide the service. I mean, is the maintenance of home accessibility a consideration that clients are curious about, or is there anything you can kind of tell us about that side of things?
Yeah, it's definitely an important consideration, and it ties back to two of the priorities that I mentioned earlier, which is safety and reliability. Because elevators, it kind of looks like a box that goes up and down, or if you take a stairlift as another example, it looks like a chair that just goes up and down, and it can't be that complicated. But there are a lot of moving parts, like cars or a lot of other things that have both electrical and mechanical components. And so it is important that they receive the basic scheduled maintenance, and that's something that we really focus on, try to communicate about early and often throughout our process, so that folks are aware of that. And it doesn't have to be a major event or anything like that. Just doing things in a scheduled and intentional manner can a lot of times mitigate the chances of something building up and then becoming a bigger deal further on down the line. And so we just try and maintain a service focused mindset, and that's something that I think has benefited our clients throughout the years.
I imagine it's kind of have to be, similar to your mechanicals, make sure they get inspected, make sure you're routinely changing your air filter, all those things. It's something that's there, but if you do kind of the things that you're supposed to do, it should really be an avoidable expense and something that is, working great, the majority of the time.
You're absolutely right. And the other side of that too is that just like, the car analogy, there's different types of equipment, and one of the advantages of being in business for over 35 years is we've seen what works and what doesn't, and we're fairly selective about which types of equipment we work with, and obviously we want to put our clients in the absolute best position to have an elevator or lift that works perfectly every time it's needed. So we definitely put our best foot forward to accomplish that.
The one thing I kind of want to touch on, which is really interesting, and I think we've been getting better at the podcast, having all sorts of different types of, customers across the industry come in here. I think you are the official first elevator company that we've had on the pod.
I think so.
Which is awesome. Congrats there. We'll make sure to get your medal sent out after this. But no, it's cool because a lot of time people misconstrue Buildertrend that is only for home builders, as build in the title. But obviously, it can be used across anybody in the industry. So I'm kind of curious in your specific company, you have multiple locations, you're doing this kind of niche thing in the specialty market, but you're still using Buildertrend. So what have been kind of some of your biggest wins, would you say, implementing that in your company, and how do you find it the most impactful, or how are you guys using it?
Yeah, so we love Buildertrend. There's a few reasons. One is usually it's good news when we get an email from Buildertrend. It could be a custom home builder inviting us to take a look at a project where we might contribute with a custom home elevator, or it might be hey, there's money on the way. So that's always good news, right? Especially for those of us working in accounting.
Right.
So that's one of the reasons why we like Buildertrend, but really helps facilitate communication as well. And so we do have relationships with several custom home builders that use the Buildertrend platform. And another reason that we like it is that those jobs tend to go relatively smoothly. It might be because the type of builder that uses Buildertrend is the type of builder that really is deliberate with open communication with their clients and subcontractors, or it might be because of the added benefit that Buildertrend provides with communicating with subcontractors like us. But in any event, it does seem to help things go smoothly. And so whether it's inviting us to quote on a project, or advising us that a purchase order has been issued, or asking us to sign a lien waiver, any of those things that can be administrative and somewhat time consuming in some cases, especially when it all adds up, is really facilitated by the Buildertrend platform. And so, we've definitely noticed that a lot of the, custom home builders that we do business with that really do great work have gotten onto that platform. So we've gladly jumped in just to be able to communicate with them effectively.
I love hearing the subcontractor perspective on Buildertrend, because the reality is we have thousands of subs logging in every day, and so they're using it at the benefit of the builder. So I'm just curious, from your perspective, is subs that are like resistant to the technology adoption, I should say, what would you say to them and say, like, explore it, check it out? When you were introduced to Buildertrend, were you kind of concerned or fearful, or what was your perspective?
Yeah, I would say yes. It was a lot of times when you get invited to set up an account, it's kind of like, oh, not again.
Yeah, here we go.
Like, do I really have to do this? Can I avoid setting up this online account because I already have hundreds of them? But once we actually did it, which wasn't difficult, it was pretty clear that it was worth our time, and it's not challenging. And the other thing I want to mention is there have been times where I just didn't know what to do. I don't remember the specific case, but maybe it was, how do I get this job that I know is in Buildertrend to show up on my, login or something like that. there's a number to call, and the people on the other end are really helpful. Like genuinely, that's not always the case, right? We've all called tech support, and sometimes it's helpful, sometimes it's not. But it definitely sticks out in my mind. It's been several years, over the course of several years, where it's very reliable. When I have a problem, I call, and somebody answers, in a reasonable time frame, and can help right on the spot. And so it's, not only not intimidating, but when you have a problem, you can work through it with the help of the Buildertrend team. So I've really appreciated that.
Well, we appreciate that. I love hearing that. I know Charley does too. I always get fired up, and I will be going and talking to some of my people to say that they got a shout out on the podcast. So we appreciate that. How many builders are you working with through Buildertrend now? I'm just curious. If you had a guesstimate, can you?
Yeah, no, it's a good number. I don't know the exact number, but it's not it's not like one or two or three. It's like I said, a lot of the builders that we do work with that do really outstanding work are on the platform, and I would say it's some that we've done business with for a few years. Maybe they weren't on it last time, but then next year, it's through Buildertrend. So we've noticed that trend as well.
There you go. That's awesome to hear. Your comment about, every time you get an email, it's either about a new job or more money. I mean, tough to complain about that. I have a demo account that I use for testing, and I've never gotten any of those emails. So maybe I'm not using mine right, but
I always open those emails first, when I'm catching up on email.
Well, we're about out of time, Pete. Thank you so much for joining the Building Code. I thought that we covered a lot of really interesting topics, and getting your perspective both as a sub and an innovator in your field. It was really great to meet you, and hopefully you found it to be a fun half hour for you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I enjoyed it and enjoyed meeting you, and thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Pete. This was awesome. I'll be reaching out about that glass elevator for my little 2-story home in my house as well.
Absolutely. Call me.
Will do. Thanks, Pete.
We just said our goodbyes to Pete here on the Building Code. Another fantastic guest that joined us, Charley. Good job.
Yeah, back at you, man. I mean, I meant what I said on there. I feel like we're getting a lot better. Types of guests that we have on here, type of conversations that we're having. We're really expanding the podcast, expanding our friendship, expanding the Buildertrend reach to all areas of the construction industry. And Pete was a fantastic example of that.
Yeah, good perspective from the other side of the Buildertrend ecosystem, with someone who isn't necessarily a paying subscriber, but still reaping the benefits of using the software. Talk to your subcontractors about getting on board and really start using the software to expand your business and really grow what you're doing.
Yeah, I thought you had a really good point in there when you talked about just our entire user base. We generally think of the GCs and their company, but we have just as many, if not more, subcontractors on our platform every single day. So I thought Pete's tagline, maybe put this on a t-shirt, where he said, every email I get is either another job or another payment. Like, yeah, from a subcontractor, your two most exciting parts of your job, more money, more jobs, that can be facilitated through Buildertrend. So that was really, really cool to hear. I always enjoy when people talk about, how much they love Buildertrend. I feel like we do a decent job of not always just this being a sales podcast, but I do think our guests do a really good job of doing that for us.
Yeah, let the results speak for themselves, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And Pete will go up even higher on my list if he comes through with that.
I'm starting to keep track
elevator.
of your swag or your hit list of things that you're going to get.
Yeah,
from your podcast experience. You've got elevator, t-shirts. Other marketing deal.
Well, we
worked out.
Yeah, even just locations. I feel like we've pitched. We were trying to go to Australia at one point, New Zealand. We were trying to go down to Florida.
The thing I want to note: we've gotten none of this. This is all just imaginary. So
yes,
join us next time on our podcast, The Building Code, where we try and expand Charley's stuff. And if you don't want to be there for that, then what are we even doing? But for real, thanks for joining us, Building Code. Remember to like, review, subscribe wherever all podcasts are available. Check us out next time.
Thank you.